Welcome to the Modern Classrooms Project podcast. Each week, we bring you discussions with educators on how they use blended, self-paced, and mastery-based learning to better serve their students. We believe teachers learn best from each other, so this is our way of lifting up the voices of leaders and innovators in our community. This is the Modern Classrooms Project podcast.
Hey y'all, it's Tony Rose, Deanna, they, them pronouns, a designated hype person here at MCP. And I am joined today by an ELA teacher in Florida who used to teach in North Carolina. And you'll have to read her bio actually, because it's a whole vibe out here. There's so much love and passion when it comes to talking about her students. And so I am really excited to be joined by Elizabeth Diaz-Duncans. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And, listeners, this is really exciting for me because Elizabeth actually slid in my DMs and was like, hey, yo, I need help. Things are thinging and I don't know what to do and I need your help. I listened to the podcast and just tell me it gets easier. And so ever since then, that was back in November, actually, Elizabeth. So it's been a whole vibe. And it's really funny because I know your username and this is our first time being in the same space in real time, having a conversation. So this is quite exciting for me, actually.
For sure.
So again, just thank you. Yeah, thank you for being in this space and just saying yes to the podcast. And so before we get started, what is bringing you joy currently?
Currently, I would say my children, and we're about to go on spring break after tomorrow. So I'm ready.
Oh, period. We love that. I am ready for you. Okay.
Yes.
And based on that video that you sent me today, you need a break. You definitely need a break. So well deserved. And so Elizabeth, let's tell the listeners a little bit more about who you are and how you started your MCP journey, because I think this is such a fascinating story of you starting in Florida, going to Durham, and then going back to Florida. So yeah, tell us a little bit more.
So I started teaching about 14 years ago, and I am from Florida, born and raised. And we decided finally, Florida is too hot and we need to see something else. So we went to Durham because I had a cousin living there, and she was like, yeah, come, you can stay with us for a little bit. And we did that. So I got the position at Hillside High School, go Hornets, and the rest is history. So I did that for 5 years, and we ended up, because of COVID, that was the biggest deciding factor for us. We decided that we wanted to be closer to family, and all my family is down here in Florida. So we came back, and I've been in this county for, I think this is my 6th year now. But I've always taught English. When we moved back, I actually taught 6th grade for 3 years, which was way different from high school, but it was straight. It was fun.
Yeah, definitely kudos to you for doing high school, because I always told myself that I could never. I did my student teaching with high schoolers when I was 21, 22. And I was like, oh no, these are the big old babies. I can't handle them. So I'm all about 6th graders. And so I love that. And I know too, Elizabeth, you said that you had come across MCP while you were in Durham, right? And I know that we have a pretty good partnership with school districts and schools really all across Durham. And so I'm excited to hear that you carried on MCP to Florida when you went back.
I actually heard about it, like the actual program here in Florida, but people were using it in North Carolina. And I was really interested because I was like, that's kind of like what I want to do, but I just don't know how to implement that, because since I've started teaching just lecturing to all students at one time, and we have kids coming late. We have kids, especially after, COVID, out for a week, out for 2 weeks, depending on the immune systems and stuff. So I just knew that what I was doing wasn't enough for me, for the way that I like to feel at the end of the day. And you know how it is, coming up with really awesome lessons and you feel like, oh my God, this is going to go so well. And you do all this extra stuff and you got your little bins and you got your little bags and everything's cool. And then it's not cool. And then, for me, I'm sensitive. I never want to show that for real, but I really, really am sensitive. So I would just end the day like, what am I doing with my life? Why am I here? And now I just feel like way different. Sometimes I do still feel like that, but not as much, not nearly as much.
I mean, the kids are definitely going to keep us on our toes, right? Like, no matter how clear the guidelines, the directions, the steps are, the kids are still like, what are we supposed to do? um, so thank you for correcting me. My bad for assuming that you'd learned about it in Durham. It's actually really great that you heard it in Florida while you were in Florida, and then you were able to see it in action and implement it and learn more in Durham. And so how has that shift been actually from like going to Florida, then to Durham, then back to Florida? Is your school district pretty supportive in Florida of you implementing the model? How does that look?
I would definitely say so. So the difference between Florida and Durham or Florida and other states is that we have a state test that they have to pass in 10th grade in order to graduate. So the testing here is, you know, from third grade all the way until 10th grade is extreme. We are teaching them from that young how to be able to identify, the distractor questions and how to take out questions that don't make any sense and all that good stuff. So when I went, that big change from going to North Carolina, they do have a state test, but it's more so just like 20% of your grade as a final at the end of the quarter or the end of the semester rather. So I felt like a lot more freedom to do projects and hands-on stuff with the students compared to here where, we can do that, but it's just a lot more stressful for the students and the teachers because at the end of the day, if the students don't perform well for whatever reason, whether they didn't eat breakfast or they were tired or whatever happens, it always comes back to like, what was the teacher doing?
And that's so real, right? Like that's such a valid concern. And I'm hearing you say a lot of testing skills are being taught with students, right? Like being able to really analyze and really critical thinking skills of being like, which one makes sense, which one doesn't make sense. And I remember those days too, especially being in English, right? Of just like, let's really read what this thing is asking. Let's analyze that. Now let's look at the choices. And then you also have to you want to go back to the text to find that evidence to support it, right? There's that important piece of like, you want to go back to the text. And so, oh man, I feel for the teachers and the students of like 10th grade testing in order to graduate. That is wild. It is definitely something that I'm not used to. And so I'm sure it was an adjustment, like starting there, going to Durham, and then coming back. And so I'm excited to hear that you're still very much excited to implement the model, still very much trying to do as much hands-on self-pacing as you can so that your students can have the responsibility to become self-directed learners and all of that good stuff. Another really interesting thing that I learned about you through our conversations on Instagram is that you have a lot of multilingual learners, which is the reality for a lot of teachers now, right? And so what are some challenges and celebrations of modern classrooms, like implementing the self-pacing and also keeping in mind all the testing that you'll have to do that you want to share with our listeners, just so that they have a better understanding of what the parameters are, what are some of the cool things that you're doing, and all the things you want to share with us.
Okay, so I teach three different levels. So I have my ESOL students, which are English as second language learners, and then I have my co-taught classes, which have another teacher in here with me to provide support for those students, and then I have the honors kids. So one of my biggest concerns when I first started completing the modules and I spoke to my mentor about it was my ESOL kids, because obviously, it's going to be different for all of them because I didn't start at the beginning of the year. I think I started the program October. So I already had my students for a while before I started. I didn't actually implement modern classroom style stuff until late December because I wanted to just throw it out there to get a feel for it. But my biggest concern was my ESOL students because of the language barrier. So there are so many different levels. Some students have been here for 5 years. Some students have been here for 5 months. Some students have been here for 5 weeks. And the main languages that we have in class are Portuguese, Spanish, and Creole. And then I have one Filipino student, but his English is really, really good. So he doesn't even, like, I have his flag up here. I have the flags around, but he doesn't ask me to translate anything for him. So initially what I started doing, which ended up being way too much, which was a challenge for them, was I typically, if I made a worksheet, I would just like, in Google Docs, I would translate it, or in Word. So they would have the English version on the front and then their language on the back, their first language on the back. And so when I was uploading all of those things on Canvas, even though I would put worksheet, whatever, and then I would put Spanish version, French version for Creole, Portuguese version, they would still be like, Miss, where's the paper? Can you just, where is it? And I'm like, bro, you don't know how long I spent translating each and everything just for you. So you would be more comfortable. So you would be able to learn a little bit better. And that was one of the biggest challenges. And I had to kind of ease off of that because it was just too much for them in a row. Compared to the honors class that had maybe 4 things posted on Canvas, they would have 12, because I would need to post, each document in their language as well, just so they can have it. Even if they didn't feel like they needed it, I just wanted it to be there for the students who felt more comfortable like that. So that was definitely a challenge. But also having the students already and them, knowing my personality, me knowing their personalities, and kind of knowing what they needed, I felt like it was, each student actually needs something different. But when you're trying to think of it in terms of a class, it's like, okay, this ESOL class needs way more support versus the other class of students that maybe had been here a little bit longer or something. So that was definitely huge challenges for me, like trying to figure out exactly what they needed and how versus what I thought they needed. I think that was the biggest thing.
Yeah, and the language barrier can definitely be a challenge for both students and teachers, right? So I really appreciate you creating options for them to access the information. Something that came up for me too is that there's also the lack sometimes, or not even a lack, but maybe there's an expectation that students know how to access materials digitally. Right. So I taught adult ESL as well when I was back in the classroom at night part-time. And my main thing was computer skills, right? Like I had to teach them computer skills and English. And so that in itself was like 2 different skills. And so I would have, students who have never touched a computer before, or a student who only knows how to click on YouTube, right? Like, and really having to teach them like, hey, here's how to do a document, right? Like, here's how to sign something. Here's how to Google something, how to make sure that this is not a scam, right? And so I think there's a lot of unset expectations too, that students, just because they're younger, that they know how to access the things digitally, right? And so that's like another skill set that we're having to teach. Because, you were saying like, hey, miss, where's the paper? They're so used to paper.
And I actually had to so I put it there, obviously, just in case they're out, everything is listed on Canvas, but definitely the amount of paper that I have been going through is wild. The amount of ink I've been going through is wild, but it's very much needed because once I start them off a certain way, that was it. Like, especially the ESOL learners, but even the native English speakers, like they want what they want. And I have to make sure, and that's why I really love this about Modern Classroom, to keep things the same format. So if I do notes one way, the practice is going to look the same way every single time I do it. And the mastery check has to look the same way. Because when I do something different, they're like, what is this? Where's the paper at? And that's why I sent you the video this morning, so you can actually see the board, so you can know what I'm talking about. Like, I try to put all the labels on the board, 3.1, 3.2, notes, practice, take one for the group. And I watched them yesterday do it, and I started laughing because I was like, am I the one? Am I AI? Like, what's happening right now? Because I know that you see bright orange thingies up there that are labeled, and they're like, oh, okay, yeah. Okay, miss, you're tripping. Relax. And I'm like, I go through all this extra stuff just so you can have it. And they're like, okay, so this is the paper or no? Okay, thank you. That's what I need. Can I go sit down? Okay. And I'm in meltdown mode, like, why?
Yeah, and it's so interesting too, because I think about too, back to your comment about how like you come up with a lesson plan, you think it's so dope, and then the students are just like, well, it's okay, it's not that exciting. So I
Yeah.
kind of hold my hope a little bit closer. I'm like, you know what, this is hopefully going to work. I think this is great, and I think that's also the importance of having conversations with the kids, right? And it seems like you have a really good
Yeah.
relationship with your kids, and so you kind of know like, oh, so and so is going to need this, and you showing me that visual too of like labeling everything. And it's clear, y'all, like if I can show the video, I would, or even if I could link it. But it's just, it has, everything is labeled. The instructions are short. And so students still struggle with that. And that's okay. That's part of life, because adults also do the same, right? And I think a lot of the times we get frustrated with our kids when they do things like that, but then we as adults also do it. So it's a lot of grace here. And I love that you're, chuckling about it, and you're kind of just like, oh my gosh, am I losing my mind right now? I know it's not me, kind of conversations. And so I just really, really appreciate that about you, and just like how you talk about your kids. It's just a lot of love there. And, with multilingual learners too, I'm curious, when it comes to translating, have you been able to use AI to do that so that it doesn't take as much time for you to do?
So I just use whatever the translate in Google Docs or Word, and then I ask them, because sometimes when I'm reading it in Spanish, because I'm not completely fluent in Spanish, even though I'm Puerto Rican, because both my parents spoke English in my house, so I didn't have to learn Spanish. I learned it really on my own after I was a teenager, because I was just like, I'm tired of getting made fun of. But I'll read something and I'm like, is this the right word? And they'll tell me like, no, because Cuban Spanish and Puerto Rican Spanish and Guatemalan Spanish and, Dominican Spanish, different words, different words. So dialect, whatever you want to call it. Um, and so I would read it and I would give it to them and they'd be like, no, miss, this is not right. Why did you give us this? And I'm like, I'm trying, please take my paper. But yeah, I just use the translate thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think they really appreciate it, right? Like it's the effort of you being like, hey, I tried it. Like, correct me, right? I am open to critique. I'm open to corrections. And so that creates that community of learning together, as opposed to you being right all of the time. And so I can relate about your comment of not speaking Spanish until later on. So my mom and my dad also spoke English, and there was like no pressure, no expectation for us to speak Filipino back. And so it was a lot of, we understand it completely, but we would always just respond in English, right? So it's really interesting like that. And I'm over here like, I want to learn how to speak Filipino fluently anyway, because I can do very little, but everyone in the Philippines want to speak English. So it's just like, okay, well, I guess I can't. I'll just have to continue watching Filipino movies and listening to songs, I guess. Okay, well, thank you for walking me through all of that, because I know, again, multilingual learners are a hot topic and a lot of teachers are experiencing that. And so thank you for walking me through all the things that you do for your multilingual learners. And something that, I really, really appreciate this about you. Again, I said this before, is that you advocated for what you need, right? And you used it through Instagram. This is something that I wanted to highlight on the podcast too, is that you don't have to just email us, right? You can also slide into our DMs. You can use the Facebook group to get access to the community as well. And so something that I love telling our teachers is that you got to let us know what you're struggling with, right? You got to advocate for yourself, because you advocate for your students. And so I love that you were just like, hey, I listened to this. I'm having problems with the progress trackers, right? I need help.
Bad.
And it wasn't one of those things where you were like, hey, it's Elizabeth, I'm blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, you just went straight to I listened to the podcast. You got to tell me it gets easier, right? And I was like, oh yes, I love this vibe. Exactly. Straight to the point. Let's keep at it. So, okay. So before we even dive into the progress trackers, I'm curious about how you use social media to reach out and get your questions answered. Were you just has this always been a part of your practice? Tell us a little bit more about that.
So I was thinking about that earlier. And that's really not like me. I do, when I actually have to admit that I need help, like it's hard for me. So I have to, go through the process. And I had my mentor, so I would hit my mentor up, but that was email, and she's teaching too. And her hours are a little tiny bit different from mine. I think she gets out a little bit later than me. So I would be here after school, the bell's ringing, and I'm like trying to, get through my modules. And I would hit her up, and then I would watch a podcast or something, or on my modules, it would be a YouTube video that was linked. So I would go directly to that person's YouTube and write a comment after, like, oh, I'm interested in this. And then I would keep checking, and I would keep checking, and I would keep checking. And I wouldn't get the response when I thought that I needed it, because I want it now, I'm like the kids. And then finally, I don't know what happened. I was listening to one of your podcasts, and I was just like, you know what? I see the IG right there. Let me just see. And I don't even use Instagram like that. I don't use Facebook. That's why I never signed up for the Facebook thing, because that's probably really, really useful, and I should, but I'm just not on it. So I just said, you know what? Let me just see if she'll even respond, and you did. And thank God, because I was stuck.
And I mean, right. And that, again, it's a reality for a lot of teachers too, right? Like a lot of dope teachers that I've been are just like, nope, I don't do social media. I'm not getting on there. I don't want to be on there. And so it's really fun to have those conversations. And so, and thank you for being patient enough and just be like, okay, I'm not getting any responses back. I'm not, and you were like, nope, I'm going to try this venue instead. I'm going to try this one. I'm going to try this one. And so I really love that. And again, kudos to you. And I would have never known that like you were not the type to ask for help, because I feel like it was just like straight up, I need help with this. I don't know what I'm doing. It's a mess.
It was driving. I was like, oh, and then with the tracker thing, I didn't find out until way after. This tracker thing has been my issue, right? Because when I asked you something, I just found out. I think it was like recently about the Wavio thing, because I started using the Wavio one, and at first I couldn't get all my kids populated automatically. Clever usually is able to do that, and then I went on there, and Clever was like, sorry, your district is not allowing us to do that or something. So I'm like, okay. So they let me contact Wavio, and I had chats with people, and they were really cool. And they like sent me videos like, okay, click here, then click here. And the lady was really, really nice. And I was still like, okay, but I don't see how I can get all my students, like 160 something kids. And then you, I think, suggested, why don't you just try one class at a time? Just do one class. And me, I was like, yeah, for sure. That sounds really, really good. That's actually really smart. And what did I end up doing? All of them by myself, by hand, entered everybody. And the kids are like, oh, okay, what's this? And they would see, I didn't check. I was checking them off at first. So I would check somebody off because they turned something in. And then they started like immediately the first day, they're like, wait. Why is mine red and it's not green? What's going on with the thing? Or with the blue or something? And I was like, because you didn't turn it in. So you need to hurry up and turn it in so that you can get moved. And then way after, I think this was like a month ago, I didn't realize they were supposed to be tracking themselves. So I was doing all of this extra work, pulling my hair out. And then I was like, wait a minute, that makes sense. This does make a lot more sense. Like, why am I going through each individual child and clicking what they did or what they didn't do? And they're still like, what app? How do I see? Can you pull it up again? Because it's not on there right now. And that was the problem. They had to create their own, not me. So I've been learning this whole entire time.
And you're still going at it, right? Like, I really love the persistence on your part, because I know for me, my neurodivergent brain, I would have been like, nope, screw this, I'm done.
I wanted to.
I just really love the fact, Elizabeth, that you were so pressed to have all of your classes, because I was like, girl, stop. Like, don't do that. Like, what are you doing? And you were like, no, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm not going to give up yet. Not yet.
And I was just like, okay, we're gonna figure this out. I just want you to share all of the thoughts and the processes. But I was like, oh my goodness, let's just try it this one time. But I'm glad to hear that you're relinquishing that. Like, you don't have to do any of that work, right? Like, and I also just want to reiterate to our listeners too, that the progress trackers don't have grades. It literally just shows where students are. And it's that instant. Like you said, day one, they notice where they are and they're like, wait a minute. minute. I don't know what it is in our brain, but when we see something like that, we're like, oh no, I gotta do this. I gotta do that. And so I love this. This is great. And so Wavio is working out pretty well for you. They are really responsive when it comes to like questions and concerns.
Yes, very quick. It was just the thing with the district having it blocked or something. I don't know what it was, but so there was like a little cohort of us that did this together right before Christmas break. And I didn't realize who the teachers were because I don't know them personally. And I'm an English teacher, so I talk to English teachers mainly. So there was like a health science, a medical academy teacher, someone else, I think criminal justice. There's a couple of different teachers that are doing it, and my kids happen to have them as well. So that's how I got really like, wait a minute, how are you clicking that yourself? And my student was like, what do you mean? We put in our email address, we log into it, and we click. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that made me reach out to another teacher. And I was like, hey, I know you don't know me, but how is this working for you? Like, how did you get them to do that? And she explained it to me. And I was like, bro, I've really been over here struggling because I was about to give, like, there were so many papers stacked up on my desk and I don't want their papers. The whole thing is I'm going to check it off. You check it. I was checking it off for them. And then, you take your paper and you have the notes in your notebook. So you never, I shouldn't have stacks of paper anywhere. And when I kept looking at the stacks, I started getting to the point where, I can't do this. This is not for me. Like I can do everything else. This I'm not going to be able to do. And that's what it was. I was the problem, as always.
But it's not even you being the problem, right? Like one of the things that I'm learning as we get older is like, I don't know what I don't know. And so it's really, really, really great that you had a cohort of teachers go through that. So then you can pass ideas, right? Like you can share ideas. You could be like, oh, wait, you're doing it that way. Why am I not doing it that way? Right. So again, here you are advocating and being like, hey, how do you do that? Because that ain't what I'm doing. So I love that your students are getting it from different teachers as well. And so there's kind of like that alignment too, right? And so, oh, that's so nice. I always tell people like, get a teacher bestie, like get your teammate to do this with you so you can like throw ideas at each other and just feel a little bit better in community when you're trying something new. So one last thing before we go, Elizabeth, I am curious, you use Canvas as the LMS, which I think is beautiful. Any tips and tricks that you've learned throughout your journey on how to use it effectively? Again, because like Wavio, you didn't know what you didn't know. What is like 2 to 3 things that you want to share out when working with Canvas?
So I knew Canvas on like a very basic level, and I didn't know that there were like pathways that you could do and stuff like that. But I kept doing research, and the Modern Classroom podcast and stuff like that were like, this is something extra you could do. And like for my students that are honors versus the students that are co-taught, if I want to do that, I can try that. That's the next thing I want to try. But something that I would recommend is if you're doing your mastery checks on Canvas, because I had to move to that too because of the paper. And I had to learn that. I had to do it to learn it. I would say there's a test bank that you can create for each one. That way you don't have to, so if a student is absent or they didn't get a question right and they have to redo it, you have a test bank so you can just go ahead and, click on 2 or 3 extra questions or print it maybe if you need to, and it's already there and it's ready. That was one of the biggest things for me. And I use all of the Modern Classroom stuff. So I was printing everything out and I was like, yeah, no, I can't do this anymore.
I know. And listeners, on the back end too, we ask our guests, like, is there a resource that you want to share? And Elizabeth was like, no, y'all have all the resources that I use.
You're going to see the same thing I have because I'm using their stuff. Sorry.
Oh, and that made me chuckle so hard because it's so real. That's so real. Well, thank you for your time, Elizabeth. Thank you for your experiences and your expertise. And thank you for sliding into my DMs and not giving up and just continuing to make the classroom better for you and your students. I appreciate your energy. I appreciate your vibe. And I hope that we continue messaging each other on IG because I do want to see all the cool things that are happening in your classroom.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I think if it was not for you responding, especially with this tracker situation, I don't know what I was going to do, honestly, because I can get down. I can do it. I can get, you know what I'm saying? I get out the mud, but that was a lot. It was just a lot. And it was such a simple thing. So ask questions. always ask questions.
Oh, so beautiful. What a great way to end this this recording, y'all. Ask questions. It doesn't matter how silly it may sound.
Yes.
Just ask the questions. We want our students to ask questions. So we as adults have to do exactly what we want our students to do. So, what a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. Listeners, remember you can always email us at podcast@modernclassrooms.org, and you can find the links to topics and tools we discussed, as well as more info on this week's announcements and events in the show notes for this episode at podcast.modernclassrooms.org. We'll have this episode's recap and transcript uploaded to the Modern Classrooms blog on Friday, so be sure to check there or check back in the show notes for this episode if you'd like to access those. And if you enjoy our podcast and it's been helpful in supporting you to create a blended, self-paced, mastery-based learning environment, we would love if you could leave a review. That does help other folks find our podcast. And of course, you can always learn the essentials of our model, if you want to go beyond the podcast, through our free course at learn.modernclassrooms.org. And you can follow us on social media at modernclassproj. That's PROJ. We are so appreciative of all the hard work you do for students and schools. Have a great week, and we'll be back next Sunday with another episode of the Modern Classrooms Project podcast.